Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been frustrated with your body, confused about nutrition, obsessed with eating healthy, or guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained, and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy, you can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking for help and making a change. I'm Lindsay Elizabeth Cortez, sports dietitian and owner of Rise Up Nutrition, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Today's episode is thanks to our Patreon members and our affiliates and partners. Head to patreon.com/femaleathletenutrition to join our membership or donate to the podcast, and stay tuned to hear about some amazing deals and discounts from our partners, including Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, and Jen and Carrie. But for now, we're getting right to the show. Enjoy. Hello, fans. Thanks for joining us in another episode. Lindsay Cortez here, your host, sports dietitian, owner of Rise Up Nutrition, and I'm here with Molly Huddle. She is an American middle and long distance runner and longtime runner sponsored by Saucony. She's a two-time Olympian, and she has represented the U.S. at World Championships, World Cross Country Championships multiple times. She has held the 5,000 and 10,000 meter American records, 10-time All-American at Notre Dame, and really just a force in the field of female running. And I'll also throw in here, she's a co-author of the book, How She Did It, which she co-authored with Sara Slattery. And this book has just been making waves in the running world and just world of female athletics altogether, being really impactful. So Molly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes. Hi, Lindsay. Thanks for the great introduction. Very thorough. A lot of good facts.
Yeah. Well, I could have kept going. You've been, such a well-known and acclaimed runner for, like 20 years now or more.
A long time.
Potentially.
Yes.
A long time. Yeah. And that's why it's so great to have you on the podcast, because you have, really years of experience of not just what does it take to make it to a high level, but what does it take to stay there as well and go through different life stages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Especially this most recent one,
yes.
Right? Of having a baby just less than a year ago.
Yeah. It's been so interesting. And it's something I even looked back on when Sara and I were writing the book of just like, that is one way I would define success in a running career, is that longevity and just being able to take care of your body that long through all the the female athlete goes through so many changes from puberty to, if they decide to have kids, and then later there's menopause. It's like your body and your nutrition needs and just how much load you can handle. It all is changing all the time. So yeah, definitely has been something that we think is important to address and try and keep ourselves on the right side of the line as far as health goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a great place to just dive into and start this conversation because, of course, now having been through lots, you can kind of reflect on that and the importance of it. Was this something that when you started out your career, you were mindful of like, I want to have a long career, or I'm focusing on longevity, or is it just something more as, as you've grown and been involved in the sport longer that it became more of a focus?
I think it was something, I definitely had to be intentional about. Like when I look back to my high school and college athletic self, I really just didn't know much about, how to fuel your body well. And just, I had no idea how long I'd be running. I was thinking, wow, right. 30 sounds so old, when you're 20, and it's like, I'm sure I'll be retired by then. And then, my best ever year, I was all my PRs were set between 30 and 33. So I was like, okay, I'll keep going. And very surprised to even find myself still running now. But it's the things that give you your best, you want your body to be strong, you need it to be strong and well reinforced. And if you focus on that, it it does like help you stack years on top of each other. So like they kind of hand in hand, like trying to run as fast as you can, you need strength. And if you're strong, you're going to last a longer time as well. And then you actually can put consistency on top of that strength and get even better. So it kind of just went hand in hand when I realized like what you really need to be a good distance runner.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that your fastest times were between 30 and 33 and maybe still to come. That door is open. But I absolutely love that because there is so much pressure on, just the high school and college of like, oh, you only have 4 years, to make it, or even that immediate post-college period. I think there's a lot of pressure of making it as fast as possible. And that decision, I think a lot of it too comes down to financial and just life decisions that people are like, giving themselves sort of this timeline post college of a year or 2 years to see if they can make it work. But in reality, I think you are proof and many women in, recently are proof that, if you focus on longevity, actually you can really do this. And it doesn't matter if you're in late 20s, early 30s, or, we'll see if even beyond that is really where high level performance can happen.
Definitely. Yeah, you're definitely seeing that trend of, at least in the longer events, things like the marathon, women running closer into their 40s and beyond. And, I raced this past weekend, and at one point, like, I was in a little pack with Des, Lyndon, and Natasha Wodak, and the three of us are like age 38 to 41, and we're still running at these like high level races. So I think it's becoming more clear that you don't have to walk away at a certain age and like you can get through things. I think a lot of the times there'd be a roadblock, a big injury or a big setback, or maybe like some kind of issue with your performance. And you'd say, okay, well, it's over and I'm walking away. And now we're seeing it become really a long career. So yeah, a lot more things are in the conversation when you're doing it 20 years, things like having kids and kind of like rethinking the age, like the aging of the athletic body. And it's been interesting to see.
I was going to make a comment, even though it's really not a great comment, but as the dietitian here and the researcher, I really should have like a few more facts before I say this, but I'll just go for it anyways. I saw like a headline recently about how many women are seeing better running performances postpartum. And probably from the science standpoint has to do something with the fact that we've had increased blood volume over, 9 months and potentially more red blood cells even. I'm not quite sure on it because there's also still a lot in the postpartum period that obviously takes away from performance of our intestines and organs being completely changed and smushed and all of that. So there's a lot of like recovery and precautions that need to happen in the postpartum period. But again, I saw this headline, so I know it's not great information, but potentially with that increased blood volume, maybe the possibility of some better performances in sports that, more oxygen flow, like endurance sports, is possible. And like you said, you just raced this past weekend. That was the New York City half marathon, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And you recently had a really incredible comeback in another half marathon, just a couple months earlier, correct?
Yeah. It's interesting. You have seen some women do come back so much faster on the endurance side in like longer events after having their kids. But I would say, I would like to hear more about that research wise. Like, for example, I'm still like 3 minutes off my old PR in the old, that was before shoe technology. So who knows, maybe I'm 4 minutes slower still. So I definitely am feeling, and then like the way I approached my career is so different now than it was then. Like I see where the 3 minutes is. Like I don't have time to recover. I don't sleep. I'm breastfeeding. I used to fly across the country to see my chiropractor whenever I had a bad injury. Now I can't, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to fly with her if I don't have to for the first year. So the first year is tough. Like I feel like for as many blood cells as you gain, you like carry as many burdens as well. So it's a weird mix, but I think there's something that maybe it's further down, maybe like year 2, there's something maybe that helps women. And you certainly see women come back as good or better if if they have enough support, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like, for example, Helen Obiri, who won the race, her daughter's 7. And it would be interesting to go back and look at her early years, like 2015, 2016, her comeback. What was it like? How did she approach it? But she's better than ever. Now, like it's not like it changes things forever, but it is interesting to see that. I've heard that theory, that phenomenon of like the boost and the endurance boost. And I wonder what's really behind it.
I know. That's why I'm like, oh, I should have been a little more prepared with like researching that a little bit, but it's definitely been on my mind and, certainly an area to explore. But I also at the same time don't want women to feel pressured to like perform great postpartum because as you said, there's so many burdens and that lack of sleep is just killer. I mean,
yeah,
there's days when you can hardly function, never mind run, So.
Yeah, definitely. And it does take like to hit peak performance. It takes a lot of hours like in the day, like more than you realize. Like I used to kind of downplay it and think, oh, I only can really train for 2 hours, 3 hours a day. But really all the stuff around it takes a long time. Like as I'm trying to like pare it down now, I'm like, oh, I guess I skip a lot of things now that I used to not skip, and it added up to more than I realized. Like, so yeah, definitely you need to have the time.
What a great point. It's like training isn't just about that training session. It's everything you do to prepare and recover from it. And, I'm sure nutrition is a huge piece of that as well of, getting to the store, buying ingredients you want, making food, prepping food, all of that in and of itself at the level of running that you're at. That's, your second job essentially is feeding yourself. Mm-hmm. Am I correct to assume that?
Oh my gosh. Especially with breastfeeding, it's like double what, like I really have to, I think I saw somewhere, and I'd have to verify this, like the energetic cost of breastfeeding is already similar to like endurance training, athletes in endurance training. And so if you're both of those things, it just goes up a lot more.
Oh my gosh.
So it is a lot. Yeah. Like you're literally, like I do feel like, I joke, I'm like, I feel like a cow. Like I'm always either eating or feeding. Like I'm chewing on grass all day. Like I'm chewing on something all day. So yeah, it's work to fuel yourself enough.
Yeah. And the amount of hydration you have to do, again, it's double for you. Breastfeeding requires more hydration. And then running, of course, requires a lot of hydration as well. It's just constant. Mm-hmm. And so it really is a job to feed yourself. Obviously, you have a supportive partner who's hopefully helpful in that situation as well. But what are some of the things you've found and we can kind of do two part to this question, maybe in the past year during this phase of your life of kind of nutrition tactics that have been helpful to keep up with feeding and hydrating yourself. And then maybe as a part two question, like just generally speaking as an athlete, some of your kind of like go-to tips to keep up with that second job of fueling yourself.
I'd say my tip since having Joe would be I'm not too particular about what I'm eating. Like maybe if you're a professional athlete or like maybe before I was like, well, I want it to be like this quality and this, and now it's like I'm getting like protein and carbs into my body from anywhere. Like it could be a McDonald's Big Mac. I don't care. It's like, I need it now. I need enough. It's got to be, it's got to take me like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Not that I eat McDonald's every day, but it's like, I'm just more, that's just the level of maintenance I'm at. I'm like, you don't really have time or energy to be like too precious about like the like recipes and the quality. Like you just need to get like the macronutrients into your body in a timely manner and make sure there's enough. So
yes,
I wish I was at a higher functioning state than that, but that's just how it's been this year. So important to keep just snacks everywhere in the car. I've done a lot of eating in the car because I'm like, well, I don't have to hold her, so I can like eat the whole time I'm driving. This is like,
oh my gosh, yes.
None of this is healthy advice, but this is how I'm like here. This is like how I'm here right now talking to you.
Yes.
So like I do a lot of drive-throughs when she was sleeping. Like I would drive through and get like a huge sandwich and like have a water with me, and I'd be like, okay, like I made sure I got that in while she was sleeping, rather than like rocking her for an hour and not eating. Like it was easier to just put her in the car and go get food for myself. So things like that, yeah, having food and water in like every room in the house when she was really little, because it's like you never know where you'd end up nursing her, and you have your hands full.
And then you're stuck on the couch with your hands full for the next 45 minutes. And you're like, darn it, I really wish I had a water bottle next to me.
Yes. Or putting her down for naps took a long time. So you'd be stuck if she fell asleep on you. And I was like, okay, you need to have food sitting next to you if this is going to happen again. So yeah, trying to plan things like that.
Hey fans, I hope you are enjoying this conversation so far, and we'll be back to it in just a moment. But first, I want to pause and let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Female Athlete System of Transformation. aka the fast track to overcome disordered eating and use food as fuel to perform at your highest level. The Female Athlete System of Transformation is my unique program and proven systems to guide female athletes to understanding and implementing the proper nutrition for their sport, life, and health. Myself and my team of registered sports dietitians work one-on-one with clients to address their unique needs and counsel them through the nutritional and behavioral changes needed. Many female athletes who resonate with disordered eating, mental guilt around food and body, relative energy deficiency in sport or female athlete triad, amenorrhea, repeat injuries due to negligent nutrition, or frankly, just a lack of knowledge and understanding on their fueling needs, have seen incredible success in the fast track. After years of working as a sports RD, I've compiled the most effective ways for female athletes to learn nutrition, be supported, be challenged, and ultimately find their success with fueling as fast as possible. So don't wait another day. Get to your goals faster by joining the Female Athlete System of Transformation. Look in the show notes or head to the website to book a free call and learn more. Okay, now let's get you back to the conversation. Enjoy.
And thank you so much for sharing that, because I think too, what we have to keep in mind is like defining the term healthy. It's what's healthy for me right now, you know? And so as you said, maybe in the past, or maybe even in the future, we would like to put some intention into quality of ingredients, but right now it's just about getting the fuel in. And so it can feel so opposite of what the majority of like culture would say of like, eat at the table, don't eat in the car. But it's like, no, for you, healthy right now is eating in the car, because that's the best way that you can get it in and fuel yourself. And if you don't, you'd be underfueled and unhealthy.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to do this forever, but it just came down to like economy of everything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I need to just eat something really dense and, having what I need in it, and I need it now.
Yeah. But just normalizing this phase, and that those things are okay when in the time of need is, I think, really important. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Frequent snacking and being flexible with what and when and how we eat, and just getting the job done.
Yeah. Like, cause for me, it just wasn't okay to go long stretches without fueling. And like, that's how I talk about it, fueling, I guess, because I'm an athlete. But yeah, just trying to get like really substantial meals in and bolster it with snacks if I need to. And so that was kind of something I knew about myself heading into it too. I was like, you're probably going to be hungry. It's not okay to go stretches without eating. I know a lot of moms do that. They're busy. They forget. They put themselves second. And I was just like, yeah, no, not if you have to train. You can't do that. So that was a big focus.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you for sharing. And then, as I said, maybe part 2, if you can remember, because I know your brain has been so overwhelmed and busy the past year, but maybe generally speaking, some nutrition tactics of just, being an elite runner. What were some of your kind of top tips for fueling yourself well as an elite runner?
Let's see. I definitely had to pivot. Like when I was younger, I felt like I was very low on the protein side of things. And some of that was just, I wasn't fully aware of how much I needed. And some of it was, that was a long time ago. And everyone was just talking about carbohydrates all the time for distance runners, which are really important. And I do eat a lot of those, but I felt like I was getting some injuries from just like inadequate protein, and my iron could have been better. So like, the red meat increased in my diet. That's been really helpful. I know a lot of athletes do try to go vegan or vegetarian. And for me, it's just the demands are too high. And this sounds bad, but you already know you're competing against people who are blood doping. You can't just be low on iron yourself if you're a clean athlete. So I'm like, I need to eat steak. Like I need to eat red meat at this period in my life. Maybe when I'm retired, I probably will not eat it as much, but that's been a staple. That's been something that's really helped my career.
That's great.
And fueling, and just, it's an economical way of, replacing and like really bolstering what you need. You need red blood cells, you need strong muscles, you need those vitamins and things that are found in red meat. So that's really one of my tips.
Yeah.
Probably eat it twice a week. I don't even know if that's that much. I eat meat every day, so definitely not a low meat, like household. And so the protein, like increasing the protein has been really helpful for me. And yeah, as far as like, I probably eat like, I've always been a great snacker, but I've been trying to focus on eating like more like meals. Like that's been many years in the making. You know, when I was in college, I was always busy and I was like, I'll just grab a peanut butter and jelly here, a granola there, a vending machine snack there. And it's just not like, it just wasn't adding up to great. Like snacks are often incomplete nutritionally. So I was like, you need to sit down and just eat like your like full like sandwich, your full like steak and potatoes and vegetables. So yeah, once I started dating my husband, he's not a snacker and he was always really annoyed that we wouldn't like that I would do that. And so he kind of helped change that habit. And that's been something that helps. I definitely noticed I felt better after doing that. And then since I've become a professional, just being more prepared with like the post-workout fueling, like carrying it with me. Like everybody knows that window is there. You need that fuel in the 30-minute window with the right protein to carb ratio. But like you kind of have to plan ahead, carry it with you, especially if you're driving to the workout or if you're going to take, like people lose track of time after workouts. Like they chat, they walk to practice or they walk back home if they're in college. Just have it on you and be eating it. And you're usually not hungry at that point. So it's easy to forget. But like that's been something that I notice a big boost from, like especially long runs. Like if I carry my like chocolate milk and like protein, like my Cliff Bar with me to practice, eat it in the car on the way home or eat it as I'm chatting with my coach or eat it as like that, I feel so much better. So just being mindful of that time, because I feel like it's really easy for it to slip away when you're driving or talking or whatever, you know, showering, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Molly, these are such important topics and really great tips that, you know, clearly you've learned your lessons along the way and you feel the difference. I think that topic of protein, the importance of iron is really one for people to consider right now in just today's like culture. It's so funny because you have one side of the spectrum that's this like anti-carb, protein is king mindset. But then we have these subsets, like you said, the running community that we know the importance and cycling community and just endurance triathlons where we know the importance of carbohydrates. And sometimes as a dietitian, I get in there and I look at some of my athletes' diets and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're actually not getting enough protein in. Mm-hmm. One of my college runners right now, we're working on exactly that. And it's so funny because it's like so many people assume that culturally, people have a fear of carbohydrates, which they shouldn't. And then in these subpopulations, it's like, no, she's only focusing on carbohydrates and she needs to now shift that focus on protein. And I think another thing culturally, there is a rise in more plant-based diets and there's certainly some benefits of that, but it doesn't mean that animal-based products and meat and red meat specifically provides us with such good nutrition. And there's also ways that we can do it that makes us feel good, not just physically, but maybe, you know, with our ethics and values and things like that. And those nutrients are just so important to keep your body strong that the rates of iron deficiency in female athletes are astronomical, you know? So I think that's awesome. The other two tips you had, post-workout fuel, just, you know, planning for that is huge because like you said, people forget. And then this idea of more solid meals. I love this one, Molly, because snacking is important and I encourage snacking. But yeah, if you're relying on snacks, I think there's a lot of complete nutrition we miss out on, as well as I think the mental feeling of satisfaction. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's something you've noticed, but there is like and also a physical feeling of like complete fullness when you sit down at a meal and you kind of really eat this complete meal versus when you're snacking all day and grazing. Sometimes there's this level kind of mentally of just not ever feeling full or complete or done, maybe thinking about your next meal a little too often. I don't know if you've found that like mental satisfaction out of having more solid meals.
Yeah, definitely. Like I was always in a rush I'm in a different kind of rush now, but in college, I was always in a rush. I was always like, I'll just grab something on the way. And I have a really strong sweet tooth. Like I love carbohydrates. That's a very easy thing for me to put in my diet. So that's why the protein was what was missing. Cause I'm like, oh, I could eat, you know, I'm well fueled in the carbohydrate side of things. I love bread. I love grains. I love all that stuff. And my sweet tooth was so much stronger when I wasn't eating like substantial meals. It felt like, you know, once I started sitting down and eating more complete meals, it was definitely, I still enjoy desserts and sweet things, but it wasn't like I need to eat that. Like it was kind of before, like I was just trying to, it wasn't fulfilling and it wasn't I don't think I was hitting all my nutritional needs in my body. It was just like, I don't even know, craving things. I feel like whenever you're nutritionally deficient, that's when the cravings start to get weird. And like sugar was just,
absolutely.
The sugar was just a very strong one that I've noticed. So now I know to look out for that. Like if I am craving a lot of sugar, I'm like, oh, I'm off on something. I must be low on something.
And you're exactly right in the science of it as well, Molly, that sometimes it can be total intake or calories, but basically if you're energy deficient, nutrient deficient, your body's going to be sending strong signals to your brain telling you to eat. And one of the things that does that too is maybe even just a slight drop in blood sugar might do that. And so what we crave is carbohydrates because that's what rapidly indicates to our body. An increase in blood sugar indicates, oh, you've eaten. And so from a science standpoint, I think it is really important to share with people that sometimes those strong cravings are actually really, the truth is, yeah, you need to eat, and you can't eat sweets, you can eat carbohydrates, or maybe there's, another approach to it as well. Everybody's situation is different, but yeah, so often people kind of blame their cravings or blame their sweet tooth. And actually it's your body trying to tell you need something.
Yeah.
And, not to be angry at it, but just instead to fuel yourself.
Yeah. I feel like I learned a lot of those lessons in college when I was just like, you're feeding yourself for the first time. It's not your mom or dad cooking for you at home. And you're just like, you sometimes are just like a bit unfocused. And yeah. So glad everything, I was able to, and when you're a professional athlete, you have the time and energy to, at least pre-baby, to like plan your meals and be more intentional. So yeah, definitely felt much better once I was doing that. I was able to stay injury free and do more work, like more workload.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And let's touch base on injury a little bit, just as we're talking about kind of longevity of your career and the importance of kind of working through all these different life stages, learning how to fuel yourself properly during all these different life stages. Certainly all athletes have injuries and experience that. Do you have any tips as far as things that you might do to try and prevent as much as possible, prevent major injuries, or how to work through it when you do get stuck with something?
Yeah, I think a couple things, like primarily, making sure you have the mobility you need has been like, I see a really great chiropractor and he has prevented so many injuries that I saw, like I felt were coming, it'll be just muscle work to make sure the joint mobility is what it should have been. It usually gets a little bit reduced, you get a little bit off. So that's not a nutritional thing, but that is probably the number one thing that has like kept me injury free, because I never used to do that stuff before. I would see physical therapists and do the exercises, but the actual muscle work from someone who has a good eye for like your movement patterns, it has been like game changing. And then after that, I would say when you are injured, I feel like there can be this like, at least in the endurance community, you're worried about like putting on weight, or like you might change your diet to think, well, I'm not running as much, so I don't need to eat as much. But like you are trying to repair bone or repair muscle. And so you do need to still focus on things like protein. And like, I remember when I tore my tendon a couple years ago, like there's protocols for collagen loading. I don't know if those work, but I tried it. But yeah, tried to stay still, like giving myself the building blocks to repair the tissue that I need, and not trying like, worry about race weight because I'm going to come back to racing, or worry about that kind of stuff. Still really like trying to fuel like a new process. You're not trying to get like, you're not doing workouts to get fit, but you are trying to like rebuild a broken body part. So yeah, just keeping that in mind.
Absolutely. Sometimes we need that fuel for our like external activities is what I like to call it, like your actual workouts and training. Sometimes you need that fuel for the internal activities you're trying to accomplish, the recovery and the healing that's needed. And that's a really important thing to keep in mind during times of injury. And I think it's also, you mentioned things like race weight, and during times of injury, like don't stress about that. Make sure you're still putting nutrients in your body to help heal and things like that. And this is a term, again, I think it's a very common term, definitely in running and more endurance sports as well. Well, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm like, no, there's wrestling. There's definitely, and fighting, your match weight and things like that. But I think there's been a positive trend over the past 5 years or so of people really trying to step away from that concept of race weight and know that, trying to diet or get to a certain weight or limit your calories certainly won't help on race day. I would just love to hear, especially in your journey, of maybe what that term race weight means to you, or has it morphed and shifted over time?
I mean, I've never even had a race weight. I'm kind of using that phrase to more communicate to a lot of distance runners who are worried about that kind of thing. Like, oh, fitness you can see fitness. You can't see fitness. It's not, I feel like a lot of coaches too rely on, well, she looks fit or he looks fit. And it's like, what does that even mean? You can't see her mitochondria. You can't see her lung volume. You can't see how many red blood cells she has. You can't see her VO2 max. You're just going off fat content, aren't you? That's not accurate. So I get a little pushback. I've gotten pushback on it in some of the conversations I've had where I'm like, I actually think your weight is not relevant to your performance almost at all. If you're doing the training that you need to do to hit your desired times, it would be so rare to be carrying too much weight while you're doing that workload. I think it's a variable that's almost off the page. It's so far down in performance improvements that I don't think I've had coaches say, well, you should be able to talk. I mean, certainly if an athlete is underweight, you need to address that. But as far as getting down to a quote unquote race weight, I don't actually think you need to ever have that conversation ever, because it's too misinterpreted and it's too misunderstood. And the impact versus the detriment to the conversation is so imbalanced. It's almost negligible. It's just, I feel like there's so many routes to better performance. It's take all those. And then if you still have this very small percentage of people that you think are having this issue, I would be amazed. So yeah, it's definitely a topic that I was always mystified by people focusing on it. At the international level, I've gotten my butt kicked by so many women who have a very healthy body, a very healthy female body, internationally. And it's that taught me a lot. I was it really doesn't matter if you have this ideal number or this ideal body fat percentage, the performance. What you need is strength, and you need to be building consistent endurance over time. And you need to have healthy hormones so that you don't break down. And so that's maintaining all that is focus number one. And everything else is really just kind of a distraction as far as the weight topic goes. So I'm glad it's trending the other way. But I think, there's still some coaches and athletes out there who think, oh, well, there is a time to talk about it. And I'm actually it's actually, I think, irrelevant. I don't actually think it's that impactful when you compare it to injury prevention, improving nutrition, the quality of your nutrition, being in the right caloric balance, doing the right kind of training, all that stuff is just all the rungs ahead of that conversation.
Thanks to Inside Tracker, I can get insights and feedback on my blood biomarkers whenever I want to. No more waiting for doctor's visits and them telling you you're fine. Instead, you are in control of your health with Inside Tracker. For 20% off any of their products, blood biomarker testing, DNA kit, and age, head to InsideTracker.com and use the code RISEUP. Take your health into your own hands. Health, wellness, and fitness coaches, listen up. Practice Better is the all-in-one platform that I use to manage my business and my clients. From client scheduling and messaging, hosting sessions, taking notes, creating modules, invoicing, telehealth, building reports, and more, Practice Better is the better way to manage your practice as a nutrition or health or fitness coach. Look no further. Use the link in our show notes and use the code RISEUP20 for 20% off your first 4 months plus a 14-day free trial. I've been using Practice Better since the inception of my business, Rise Up Nutrition, and I couldn't be happier. Again, the code is RISEUP20, all caps. Use the link in our show notes for 20% off your first 4 months and a 14-day free trial. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just over here nodding my head in agreement with you. Hopefully more people begin to think like you and hear your voice on this topic. And ultimately something that I believe in, which is certainly in alignment with you, is really that weight is an outcome of everything else you're doing.
Yes.
And so just like you said, it's if you're doing the training, if you're taking care of your muscles, if you're taking care of recovery, if you are fueling your body, we're not saying that nutrition has nothing to do with this. Like, you do want to make sure you're fueling in a way that nourishes your body, then then you're going to be training at the level and intensity you want to be. Like, weight's an outcome of that. And ultimately, too, that outcome is going to be exactly what it needs to be to support all of these other amazing good things you're doing. So it really, at that point, becomes a non-factor.
Yeah, your race weight is whatever you weigh when you're setting when you're doing all that stuff right. And it's like, kind of a strange thing to fixate on. Yeah, it's an outcome of being fit. It's not what causes you to be fit. I mean, otherwise supermodels would be world-class athletes, and they're not. So,
and they're not. Right. Sometimes people on the stage in those more aesthetic career fields are actually and admit to this, being at their weakest in those moments in time. I've talked to and experienced myself as well, in the bodybuilding and figure competitor bikini modeling world too. They're always, which is a whole nother world, but they're always like, no, when we're on their stage, that's our weakest, So when we focus on that look or aesthetic, it takes you further away from performance as well as health.
Yeah.
I want to, double tap there too. Like you said, taking care of your health is equally as important for you to be a strong athlete.
Yes. And I see where the misconceptions come from in distance running, because there are a lot of extreme body types that like thrive in this sport, but I feel like we know so much more now. We know not to like compare people to, there's people that just look a different way than other people.
Well, yeah. And I think that's fair to say, is that different body types might excel in sports. It's rare to have a NBA player who's 5'3". Okay. There's been a few. So, there's always like, don't limit yourself because of whatever body you were born with. But in the same, way, maybe some of those, as you said, extreme body types might excel in the sport of running, just like we, taller people do well in the sport of basketball or volleyball. People with broader shoulders might do better in certain contact sports and rugby and things like that. So, but that's just one of those things of accepting and acknowledging that there's a variety of different body types in this world. And, you can work with it and excel in something, that your body type just thrives in. And that's amazing. But you don't have to force yourself to be something that it's not.
Right. And I feel like when we talk about nutrition and like female endurance athletes, it automatically goes to like reinforcing this message, because it is, someone listening to this podcast might be like, this is obvious. And it's like, well, this is still one of the biggest things taking like girls and women out of sport, is this underfueling and low energy availability and red. So like, we do still have to talk about it. We do still have to get the messaging out there to the people that support them and coach them and guide them, and to the athletes themselves. So I think we're on the right track, but it's like, well, the problem isn't it's not low enough yet. Like, we still need to push.
No.
So
yeah, not at all. And again, like I said, I was like, I'm noticing the trend, but I also live in my bubble of people who are like body positive and fuel your body. And, sometimes I've done a really good job in my personal life of like blocking out all the negative energy and the focus on weight and things like that. But I know it's still rampant. And I know it's so rampant. But yeah, I've created my nice little bubble of people who appreciate a variety of bodies and people who appreciate fueling fiercely. And so I would encourage more people to come on over into my bubble and come on over into Molly's bubble. It's a nice world.
Yes.
Well, awesome. So I wanted to hit on quickly, again, the book that you co-authored with Sara Slattery, who also we had on the podcast a few episodes ago and was wonderful. So your book, How She Did It. Gosh, girls and women and athletes and mothers and coaches all across the world, world, definitely here in the US, are certainly just loving this book and the message. So I just want to encourage listeners to go out and grab that book of inspiring stories, about 50 athletes who have, quote, made it in the running world. And how did they do it? How did she get there? I'm curious to hear from you, Molly. Whether one of your favorite things about writing this book, or maybe one of the most like eye-opening things from writing this book?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure Sara echoed this, but just wanted to say, like, one of the ways we chose these women was that they had relatively long, like a long career in the sport, because you knew a long career in the sport, you had to be doing it in a the healthiest way that you could. And we just wanted girls to understand that. And, it's aimed towards the young, high performance female athlete. So the professional women were great mentors. I had some professional women in my life that were great mentors. And that's why I included athletes like Kim Smith in the book, because she taught me a lot about efficient fueling and just like eating enough protein and things and just like, this is what you have to do to be good. Just there's a lot of lessons that just following her around, I learned about taking care of your body basically, and not feeling like, just breaking a lot of stereotypes that I had absorbed from, I don't even know where, to be honest. And then I watched Kim and was like, oh, well, she's like one of the top 10 runners in the world. And this is how she approaches things. And I see where I have some like gaps and flaws. So Kim is one of my favorites. She's really someone you have to twist her arm to talk about herself. So like hanging out with her was like very impactful. And then her spot in the book, I was like, oh, like she probably was very like uncomfortable talking about herself as a good role model, but she was. And then I'd say Sara probably echoed this too, but we really loved the mother-daughter chapters of the book because, Shalane Flanagan and her mom, Cheryl, Ailish McColgan and her mom, who was Liz was a world-class runner when she was younger. So no surprise that Ailish has become a world-class runner now because, great genes, and her mom's her coach. Just great guidance there. And she talks actually a lot about, she and Kim both are those extreme body types that just look so thin, but they actually would never have made it this long in the sport if they weren't like properly taking care of themselves. So it was great to hear from them and just see how much has changed from when their mothers were running to when they were running. And just, you realize like so much of like their mothers were impactful in the sport, and it was sparking some of the change in the sport that was needed so that like their daughters could just thrive and focus more on training and racing, less about creating opportunities and breaking down barriers and breaking down stereotypes. And it was really like you saw that the most with the mother-daughter combos, and it was kind of special.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really special. And I think highlights in a really, like close way of obviously family, just the progress that we've had in women's sports and how much has been done. And it's so exciting. Like, I just feel like we're in such an exciting time right now, even just our conversation about, the longevity of your career, of how women can be at an elite level in their early 40s and things like that. And it's like, man, we've really broken down some barriers, and I'm so excited for this next generation, the girls that are in high school, college now, and then are getting more helpful information like the book you put out or like this podcast that's reminding them of the importance and the possibility of a long career and taking care of your body and mind. Throw that in there as well. And, oh my gosh, I'm just so excited to see where the next generation goes.
Yeah. Like I hope, we hoped you have to like work on kind of improving the system of girls sports, but also we wanted to arm the girls. And that's kind of what we're doing with the book, arm and inspire them with this information from experts. Like we had a great nutritionist, Lauren Moretti-Reese, in the book, and we have advice from, doctors and physical therapists. So there's a little bit of that, just actual concrete advice. And hopefully they can see it is a career, like it can be a career, like it can be like a whole lucrative career if you want to be a professional athlete, but also if you're not going to be a professional athlete, like you want to take care of your body for a long time. It's an empowering thing to be able to challenge yourself in sport. You don't need to quit doing it when you're 20 or 23. Like you can do it for a long time, and it can enhance other parts of your life. So that's what we were hoping with the book, to just arm them and encourage them to take care of themselves and kind of show them how with these great mentors in the book.
Yeah. And I'll completely echo that as somebody who professional athletics was never really on my horizon, but just being a lifelong recreational athlete just brings so much fulfillment, joy, strength, happiness to my life. Like, so I want to echo that as well. It's okay. These are some tips and strategies that might help you make it to that level, make a career out of this, or just make you live a fulfilling and happy life. And by no means is that settling. It's absolutely something that's exciting and worth it. And I love calling myself an athlete, even though I might be a different type of athlete than you, Molly, but it's the same passion in my life.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so important for girls to read this book and be inspired to keep achieving and see where it takes them. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, awesome, Molly. Well, want to be mindful of your time. You've got the little one to get back to. I finish every podcast with the same questions for every guest. So are you ready to play along?
I'll do my best.
If there was one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never get sick of it, what would it be?
Bread.
Yeah.
Bread-based product.
Love it. Yes, bread is one of, I think, the world's gifts to us as humans. It sounds obvious, but you never know. What's your favorite sport to participate in?
So obviously running, but I loved basketball and I still love to shoot around. I think if I was just a taller, better basketball player, maybe I would have chosen that path.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And how about as a spectator? Is there a sport that you love watching?
I love watching gymnastics. I love the Olympic sports. I love gymnastics, swimming, track and field. I just think they're so interesting. And I do like basketball. I don't watch it as much as I want to, but yeah.
Like playing it more so.
Yeah.
Love it. And my last question, I'm sure you have like 500 people you could think of, but if there's a female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to for being an inspiration, a role model, who would that be and why?
Well, we have a lot of great women writing books. I think Lauren Fleshman's book is really huge. Yeah. So I'll say Lauren, but I'll say Kim Smith because she doesn't get enough love. And she was so influential in my career. And I know the careers of the women at Providence College with her and the girls that look up to her there and some of the women in our pro group. So Kim, it's you. She's going to roll her eyes because it's sappy. But.
I love that. Well, and sometimes those really humble people, like you said, you need to shine the light on them even more.
Yes.
So yes, shout out to Kim Smith. Thank you so much, Kim. And thank you, Molly, for just being open, having this conversation and doing all that you do for the sport of running and specifically for other girls and women and female athletes.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, Lindsay.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And if you did, if you are a true fan of female athlete nutrition, then I would love if you could support our podcast by spreading the word. Share a review on your listening channel, give us 5 stars. It really helps get the word out and get the show more views to positively impact others. Also, you can support the podcast by joining our Patreon. Head to patreon.com/female athlete nutrition to consider a donation, or even better, join our membership where you get extra monthly content and perks. We don't want you to simply listen alone. We want you to be a part of a community and a movement of fierce, fit, and fueled female athletes. So patreon.com/female athlete nutrition is where you can do exactly that, learn more, and join. A huge thanks to our affiliates and partners as well. Once again, Prevenix, Inside Tracker, Orgain, Practice Better, Jen and Carrie. Please go check them out, and their links in the show notes where you can get deals and discounts. Last, be sure that you do more than just listen. If you need help with fueling, it's time to take action. Head to my website to learn more. You can either book a free call with me to learn more about our coaching programs and how we can work directly with you, whether it's the fast track or otherwise. Or you can take our online self-study course, Female Athlete Nutrition. You can literally sign up and gain access right now. You can explore our downloadable products, including the Red S Recovery Guide, High Iron Fueling Guide. Or if you are a coach of a team, check out our brand new Coaches Toolkit for teams. You can also just learn more. We have a blog, a Red S quiz to see if Red S is affecting you. If you need help, I want you to get help fast. Too many girls and athletes struggle with nutrition, but you don't have to any longer. You can rise up with the power of nutrition, take action today in any of these avenues, and become fierce, fit, and fueled. Links in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.